Hey, sixth graders, it's Mr. McMahon. It's time for a new unit to study. Last time we talked about Europe, we were talking about the fall of the Roman Empire. And today we're going back to Europe and we're going to talk about a time period called the Middle Ages. So there'll be several videos during this unit of study, and so today we're going to start talking about the idea of European feudalism. So by the end of this tutorial, there's a couple things I need you to know. Number one, I need you to recognize what this diagram is and what it means and how it works. So by the end of this tutorial, you should know what this diagram is and how all these people are connected. Second, I need you to understand this economic system called Manorial System. An economic system is how a society produces, distributes, and consumes goods and services. And Manorial System was the economic system of the Middle Ages. And so those are the couple goals for you to know by the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And again, we're going to talk about feudalism and finish with manorialism. So what are the Middle Ages? Well, let's look at the timeline on the top. That's in a purplish blue color. The Middle Ages is first defined as a transition period. Everything we've studied up to now we can call the ancient times. Everything we cover from here on out is going to be called the modern times. And so the stuff you'll study also in 7th grade is considered the modern times. So the Middle Ages is kind of that bridge between ancient history and modern. More importantly, look at the timeline below. The Middle Ages is the time period between the fall of the Roman Empire and our next unit of study, which is called the Renaissance. In the Roman Empire, we had lots of literature and learning. People like to study, become educated, architecture. In the Renaissance, we're going to go back to that with studying and learning and architecture. The Middle Ages, sometimes called the Dark Ages, very little learning was done outside of Catholic monasteries, etc. So the Middle Ages is kind of a transition time between the fall of the Roman Empire up through the Renaissance. So the last time we were studying Europe, we looked at the Roman Empire, and it had been split into two parts. On the right-hand side of the screen, the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, had a capital of Constantinople, and it lasted for 1,000 more years. The one on the left, the Western Roman Empire, the orange color, it ends up collapsing. So our focus for the next couple of weeks will be what's circled there in yellow. We're going to focus on Europe, and again, we're going to study the Middle Ages, and we're going to talk about things such as feudalism and the manorial system. So when we left off here, we had talked about the Western Empire and its failure or collapse. And remember, it collapses for 4 reasons. Number one, it's just too large. It costs too much money. The economics don't work. And it's very difficult to have an empire that large. Second, you have some poor leadership, poor morals and values. Third, Emperor Diocletian splits the empire in half. You get the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern. And finally, as you can see clearly in the map, there are invasions from barbarians or non-Romans from north, south, east, and west. So after the fall of the Roman Empire, a man comes to save the day, and his name is Charlemagne. Charlemagne was the ruler of the Franks, but he also united the Germanic peoples, and he converts all his subjects in his empire to Christianity. Charlemagne's empire is called the Carolingian Empire. You can see it shaded here in blue, and it looks a lot like the old Western Roman Empire, except a little bit smaller. The only problem is that Charlemagne dies in the year 814. So unfortunately, after his death, Europe again becomes attacked. You have Muslim armies invading France and Italy. You have the Magyars invading Europe from the east, and you even have the Vikings invading Scandinavia. There's invasions. People are not secure. There's no political organization, so the people have to develop something in order to be safe. And we get the birth of European feudalism. So in order to provide themselves some protection, they invent this system called European feudalism. European feudalism is a social hierarchy in which a vassal, someone lower, serves a lord and receives protection and land in return. So it's really about land for loyalty. Your class was determined by your birth. The king or queen at the top of the feudal society had all the land in the kingdom, and he provided the lords and nobles a fief or a large piece of land in exchange for money and military support. The lords and nobles gave small pieces of land to knights in return that the knights would serve in their military. Also, the lords and nobles gave land to the serfs. The job of the serf was to provide the goods and services for the manor and also pledge allegiance to the lord and noble. So the economic system of feudalism is called the manorial system. And you see an example of this in the picture. At the top of the hill here you see a fortified home. Sometimes we call it a castle. This is the lord or noble's manor. All the land surrounding this would have been his feudal domain, and sometimes we may even call this a kingdom. And the serfs worked this land for the feudal lord. Now in return, they received protection from all these different types of invaders. Now in this image, you will see a relationship in the manorial system between lords and nobles and serfs and peasants. The lords and nobles provided land, and they provided protection to these serfs and peasants. The serfs and peasants, on the other hand, had to work the land and give a portion of their crops back to the lords and nobles. Additionally, serfs were not slaves, but they could not leave their land without their lord's permission. For working the lord's fields, they did provide protection from outside invaders. The serfs did most of the work on the manor, and they had to pay a lot of what they grew back to the lord, and they could not sell their land. So eventually some of these manors in feudalism become very powerful. And so these kings start to produce kingdoms. And so in today's world, we see many of these nation states. You get France, you get England, you get Russia, and you get several others. So a nation state is a self-governing country made up of people with a common cultural background. So eventually you get these powerful kings, and they combine the military power, and they create these great nation states. As you see in the map, these nation states started in France, England, and eventually they spread to Spain and Russia. All right, so that was our introduction to the Middle Ages. In this video, we've met a man by the name of Charlemagne. We looked at a social hierarchy / government system called feudalism. We finished looking at an economic system called manorialism. So again, you should understand this diagram. The people on the top have the land. They provide land and protection to the people on the bottom. The people on the bottom owe allegiance to the people on top. Second, we learned about this system called the manorial system. The lord or noble owned the land, and the serf worked it. We basically described the serf as being tied to the land. They couldn't leave it. In our next tutorial, we're going to look at the role of the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages and why it was so powerful for the people of Europe. Till then, I'll see you later.